Hey everybody, Bruce Jump, Heritage Turf Seed Product Manager here with you today. The topic is going to be disease control using genetic resistance and finding those high-performing varieties that'll give us the resistance we're looking for key diseases. Dollar spot, brown patch, gray leaf spot, red thread, pythium, all of those. I am the Turf Seed Product Manager for Heritage. We're based out of McKinney, Texas, as you know. I've been doing this for a long time, probably more than some of you have been around. First began selling turf seed after I graduated with my master's from Purdue in August of 1979. So that's been a long time. Been a product manager for 20-some years in sales and all kinds of things. So we're going to get right at it, kind of talk about how do we find high-performing varieties. By the way, welcome to the Heritage Academy. How do we find high-performing disease-resistant varieties? As you know, in the United States, we've got cool season species, Kentucky bluegrass, perennial ryegrass, tall fescue, fine fescues we typically use in the north. We've got warm season grass species, Bermuda grass, zoysia grass, centipede, bahia. We've got buffalo grass out in the Nebraska, Colorado area. All different kinds of species. For the purposes of today, because I've got about 50 minutes with you, I'm going to focus on tall fescue. It's one of our biggest sellers, one of the biggest species sold in the United States. It can be used in a variety of turfgrass situations, everything from home lawns to golf course roughs to commercial properties. A lot of research dollars have been poured into tall fescue, and it's come a long way since the early rebels that Pennington introduced, some of the first improved tall fescues back in the 80s. Lots of improvement, lots of disease resistance. So I'm going to use tall fescue as our example for the Academy today. Just keep in mind, everything I'm about to show you applies to bent grass for golf course greens and fairways. It applies to Bermuda grass. It applies to Kentucky bluegrass, perennial ryegrass, all the species. But I'm going to just focus on tall fescue because that's the biggest one we sell to our customers. But everything I'm going to show you applies to all the other species. Just remember that. So I give a lot of seed presentations. One of them is how to read a seed tag. That's not the presentation today, but we need to talk about this. How are we going to find, in focusing on tall fescue, how are we going to find resistant varieties to those tall fescue diseases like Rhizoctonia brown patch? How do we do that? How do we find everything from shade tolerant to traffic tolerant to which ones are fast establishing, which ones have dark green color like genetic color, which ones have fine texture, which ones have the best quality in the transition zone? I know we're talking about diseases and we're going to focus on that. When we find those disease-resistant tall fescues, we do have to find those that are going to have high enough quality that our customers are going to pay for those grass seeds, whether it's fees on a golf course or whether it's paying for a new home lawn establishment or lawn care. So, question is, how do we find those? On a seed tag. This is a seed tag. It's a seed tall fescue blend called Calypso we sell. Let's just real quickly take a look at this. What's on here? See if we can find anything about diseases. It has the name of the blend. Of course, it has a lot number that helps us track and trace. It's got purity, the percentage of pure seed. That's interesting. It's got the germination percentage. By the way, when it says 90%, is that really 90% in the bag? Actually, we'll find out if you're in my How to Read a Seed Tag presentation. It's really not 90%. That's a minimum guarantee. Almost always those germination percentages, especially on 1 or 2 year old seeds, are going to be somewhere between 94 and 97%. So as other crop seed, we talk about what other crop seed is. It's seed in that bag that can be sold as another crop, like perennial ryegrass and tall fescue. It would be like perennial ryegrass and Kentucky bluegrass in tall fescue. It's something that could be sold as another crop, as opposed to a weed seed that's actually a weed like curly dock or Canada thistle or something, or Poa annua, something along those lines. Test dates, ours is treated with Gravity SOPGS, our seed treatment we use. It has a Texas ID number. It has a net weight on it. This is 50 pounds. The company who sells it, the AMS number is a vendor blender number out in Oregon that we use. Interesting information, extremely helpful. Probably one of my biggest things I would do to change this industry is when I'm talking to people buying tall fescue seed. Hey, what are you buying? Oh, it's a 3-way tall fescue. What varieties are in the bag? I don't know. Just the salesperson said there were 3 good ones in there. One of the biggest mistakes people buy when they buy seed, not knowing what the varieties are and not understanding what those varieties are supposed to do. So, is there anything on this seed tag that's going to help us in finding out if those 4 varieties are disease resistant? That little G might give us a clue, like on the titanium GLS, but it's not much. So virtually none. Virtually none. It's not going to help us out too much. We use this sign for zero in our seed tag training: 0 crop, 0 weed. When you say 0, 0 seed, it means I'm going to buy seed with 0 crop in it and 0 weeds. That's what 0, 0 seed is. Only 20% of the seed leaving Oregon in turf is of 0, 0 quality. If we put a blue tag on that same blend, or on a blend of tall fescue, I'm using Artemis as the example here. If we put a blue tag on it, is that going to help us determine if these varieties are disease resistant? Actually not. The blue tag just certifies that some inspector from the state of Oregon has inspected those farmers' fields to make sure those varieties in that bag of seed are true to type. When it says titanium GLS, it's been certified that titanium GLS is really in that bag. So it's just a certification that what's on the tag is in the bag. That's what a certification means. None of that helps us on how to find disease-resistant varieties. None of it helps us. So we got to go someplace else than just a seed tag. As good as a seed tag is, we got to go someplace else. So where do we go? What about talking to sales reps and reading marketing sell sheets? I love sales reps. Some sales reps who do their homework can be extremely valuable. I would encourage you to find good seed sales reps that study, are a student of the game of grass seed, read NTEP charts, National Turfgrass Evaluation Program charts. They can be extremely valuable. I wish every salesperson did their homework, but let's just be honest. Some people do a little more, some people do a little less. What about marketing sell sheets? What about the marketing people who sell seed? I just put up these as examples. Can we really trust what's on these marketing sell sheets? You know, I've never seen a marketing sell sheet actually say, our variety of tall fescue is really good at this, this, and this, but not very good at this, this, and this. Because it's advertising, it's marketing. People want to accentuate the positive. Yes, I get it. We're trying to sell seed. But we got to be using science, from my perspective, science, to bring you, the customer, valid, high-performing varieties that have research behind them and not just marketing. In this one here, top 10, turfgrass quality in the NTEP, LPI 2, Local Performance Index Group 2, great. Brown patch resistance, great. Does anybody know what the word great means? I'm not sure what great means. Excellent shade tolerance. See, these are superlatives that marketing people use. Great density. Excellent, they say traffic tolerance. Blacktail was highest rated, like we're number 1. Highest rated NTEP in North Carolina and transition zone. I don't want to just beat up on one. These are just so typical. You know, it's great. It's top 5. Brown patch resistance is check. Got a check mark by brown patch resistance. Another excellent shade performance. What does that mean to you if you're going to buy this? Here's another one I just picked out. Excellent wear tolerance. High brown patch resistance. What's the difference between great and high? I have no idea. I don't know if the people who write these have any idea. They're just superlatives. It's a language thing. High stress and drought tolerance, excellent turf quality. It may be. This may be one of the best tall fescues on the market. It's just hard to tell by reading these marketing sheets. Under severe brown patch pressure, it shines. It shines. Again, more marketing language. Here's another one. Kind of, you get the trend, kind of saying the same thing on this fourth millennium. Another one, Unitas from DLF Seeds. I know I sound like I'm picking on people, but I pick on our own all the time, and you'll see how we do things just a little bit different. But all these wonderful things about them. It's almost like this one here, GTO Tall Fescue, top rated, NTEP, top rated, quality transition zone, top rated quality, dark green, on and on and on. It's like we need these foam fingers holding up, we're number one, we're number one. Yeah, I get it. We're trying to sell seed, but we got to get down to research and facts so we can tell if these things really are as good as those marketing sheets make them out to be. And I'm going to show you what I've done with the Turf Tech tool that actually uses NTEP, National Turfgrass Evaluation Program data, to actually measure and count. When all these marketing sheets are saying we're top rated, we're number one in the NTEPs, we're number one in Northeast quality, we're number one in brown patch disease in North Carolina. Wouldn't it be helpful if we had a way to count all of the number ones for all of the attributes, for all of the 132 tall fescue varieties in the latest NTEP trial? That would be helpful. And I'm going to get there in just a minute. How else can we determine if our varieties are disease resistant? Well, we can talk to others who grow those varieties and those mixes and blends. We can talk to them. I have a friend a couple miles from me. I live in Northeast Indiana. This is our Artemis Tall Fescue blend. I showed you the tag earlier. It's just a couple miles from me. I helped him renovate his lawn a couple years ago, so now I can keep my eye on it. And I can watch what happens. When the heat index in Fort Wayne, Indiana is like 104, 105 in the summertime, and we haven't had rain for 5 or 6 weeks, which happened this year, I can drive 2 miles down the road, go to my buddy Steven's house, take a look at the Artemis, and I can see how it's doing. And overall, it's doing really, really well. So you can check with others, and that's a good thing, checking with others. The issue is checking with others. Everybody's a little subjective about what a high quality turf is like. This is a hotel. I travel a lot. This is a hotel I stayed in New Jersey. It's a brand name hotel, you would know. And I would assume this is a major hotel chain in the world. They put a lot of money into their grounds, into their buildings, and some way, somehow, apparently somebody thinks this is acceptable turf for this hotel chain. I beg to differ. So it's good to check with people, but you got to be a little more careful about what, looking for trends and what people define as what high quality is and disease free is. Have you seen any brown patch? No, I haven't seen any brown patch. Assuming somebody knows what brown patch looks like. So just be careful on that. Others. I have Heritage has a group called the Fescue Freaks, 15,000 members on Facebook. I'm their seed consultant, and I have a chance to work with the administrator. I have a chance to interact and engage with 15,000 Fescue Freaks buying our seed and other people's seed all across the U.S., and I can keep my eye on what's going on and look at trends and drought and issues that are popping up. So online checking is really a good idea. Checking with others is good. Checking online is good. But we need a way to measure, a valid statistical way to measure how these varieties are resisting diseases. As an illustration, at my house in Grable, Indiana, a little Amish town outside of Fort Wayne, I built a botanical garden, and one of the things I grow is peppers. The pepper growers have a scale that they use. It's called the Scoville Heat Scale for chili peppers. They start at a 0 and go up to how many millions? 15, 16 million. And they're measuring capsaicin. That's the chemical in these peppers that causes the spiciness and the heat. You look over there, jalapeno peppers are 2,000 to 8,000. I love jalapeno peppers. Serrano peppers will get 8,000 to 22,000. That's about my limit. So I have an index I can look at when people tell me, hey, these Carolina Reapers and these orange habaneros, oh, they're not that spicy. Well, if I know 22,000 is about my limit and a orange habanero is 325, are you kidding me? No. See, this helps me make a determination, the scale. This is using data to help people gain a better understanding of the spiciness of peppers. It's a really useful tool. So what do we use to measure turf seed? What we use is the National Turfgrass Evaluation Program. It's the largest turfgrass variety database in the world. There's a few others. Sports Research Institute over in England. They do a lot with the European varieties. There's a cooperative breeder trials. It's kind of like the minor leagues for this NTEP group. The plant breeders in Oregon will get together and do their own testing, and they'll have some universities help them with their testing. And they're just looking at kind of preliminary screening varieties for like all the attributes you would see in the NTEP trials. And it's a way to save a little money and not, develop these varieties too far until they really know they've got solid high performance with them. So there's that one. But this is the largest one. And if you go to this website, click on that, they've got all the different species listed here. Cool season, warm season. I'm going to just take a look real quickly at tall fescue. They've got a historical database. Are the varieties in the latest 2018 National Tall Fescue Trial? Are they from 2001? I can tell you, looking at all the data I've looked at in this Turf Tech tool that I've built, if you're not using the latest generation tall fescues, you're not getting, on average, you're not getting the highest performance. There's a few exceptions, but in general, you want to be using, for disease resistance, anything out of that 2018 National Tall Fescue Test. So that's a good way to check right away to see, am I using the latest varieties? Once you click on Tall Fescue and we click on the 2018 National Tall Fescue Test, you can go in and start looking at all the attributes. What locations were they tested at? Turfgrass quality. You can look at all different kinds of quality measures: quality under drought, quality under shade, quality under higher performance fertilization, low fertilization. Then they got density scores. How early do they green up in the springtime? Seedling vigor and establishment, drought tolerance, all these wonderful attributes and data. In the latest 2018 trial, there's a grand total of 53 attributes I found, 53 of them. Got them all grouped by categories there. All the different qualities, diseases. Look at the diseases they have. It's quite a few. Cool season temperature brown patch, warm temperature brown patch. That's the Rhizoctonia that most people are concerned about. Individual state brown patch data scores. Gray leaf spot. That's a disease that's been coming on the last 10, 15 years, becoming an issue in not only perennial ryegrass, but in tall fescue. Here a couple years ago, Rutgers had a big gray leaf spot outbreak over in New Brunswick, New Jersey, on tall fescue. Pythium, red thread, pink patch, snow mold, tifula blight, all those diseases we have data for. So we will take a look at either all or most of them today. Locations submitting data. Quite a few locations, 20-some. Didn't really count them all, but there's probably 20 in there, 25. All across the country submitting data for tall fescue. Unfortunately, there's not enough money to have every state run every trial for every disease and every quality and every density and every percent living ground cover. Not enough money. So they're selective about what they run where. And that's going to be important for several reasons. If you live in New Jersey, we got 3 locations in New Jersey that are giving us data, but not every data point is tested at New Jersey. So if you're living in New Jersey and you happen to want a certain attribute of those 53 I just showed you, it may not be in New Jersey. You may have to look in a different state, but it is the best data we have. So we got to go with what we have. So anyway, those are the states. How to interpret the data. This is on the website. I would encourage all of you to read this. It'll be very helpful in making high quality seed decisions. I just want to highlight real quickly what's known as the LSD value. Cultivar differences are based on the least significant difference LSD statistics for mean separation. To determine whether a cultivar's performance is truly different from another. That's what we want to know. All those marketing sell sheets I just showed you, they all said the brown patch resistant was high, was great, was superior, was awesome, was super awesome. Are there real differences between these varieties that we can tell? So then you could go find the highest brown patch resisting varieties, choose those, put those in your 3 or 4 way tall fescue blend, and have less brown patch problems. That's what we want to know. Real quickly, 2 cultivars, X and Y, have mean turfgrass quality values of 7 and 5, respectively, with the LSD being 1. The difference between X and Y, 7 and 5, is 2. 2 is larger than the LSD value of 1. Therefore, X performs significantly better than Y. If the difference between any 2 varieties is greater than the LSD value, there is a significant difference between those 2 varieties on any attribute. Quality, brown patch, density, any of them. Simple high school math. That's all you need to know. In this example, it's a real live example. It's brown patch scores, 2023 data from North Carolina. The highest score was 8. The LSD value is 2.3. 8 minus 2.3 is 5.7. Anything greater than the difference between 8 minus 2.3, meaning 5.7, if there's a difference between any 2 varieties greater than the LSD value of 2.3, there is a significant difference. So 8 minus 2.3 is 5.7. 5.6 or below would be greater than 2.3. So on 8.0, that is Capitan. That's a DLF variety. That's 8.0. And go on the other end of the scale at the bottom over there, Burlingham. There's a bunch of, there's a Lafayette. There's a Naturally Green, Bullseye way on the right-hand side. Those are very low scores. The difference is greater than 2.3. That means there is a significant difference in brown patch performance in North Carolina in 2023 on those varieties. If it's less than the LSD value, 8 minus 2.3 is 5.7. Anything 5.7 or above is going to be no different than the highest score. And that's Capitan. So all those varieties like Tank, Bonfire's from Barenbrug, Forenza 2's from Integra Seed, Dynamite GLS is from Mountain View. All those varieties on the left, between 8 and 5.7, there's no difference between those. That is key. When I'm giving these presentations, I keep hearing, well, I thought Capitan at 8.0 was the best. Well, it's got the highest score, but statistically, meaning these plots are replicated and we need to use a statistical method to have a confidence built in. Anything 8 minus 2.3, 5.7, anything between 8 and 5.7, there's virtually no difference. Meaning if we were to run these trials again, we could expect any of those varieties to be the highest performing score. Hope everybody's with me. For more information, you can go to the National Turfgrass Evaluation Program website and read this. So just remember, there's no difference between 8 and 5.7. Those are all top ranked, top rated. And like, remember that red foam finger? All of those are number one based on Brown Patch, North Carolina, 2023 data. If you haven't been to a NTEP site, this is Rutgers. They got all the tall fescues, they got bluegrasses, they got a lot of different species over there. But all those land-grant universities that I showed on that chart for the tall fescue trials, you can go and look at these tall fescue trials at their summer field day. I would encourage you to do that. Turf Tech tool. Real briefly, the story is back in the 90s, the NTEP group published these catalogs, paper catalogs. So I would get these, and a lot of us did, paper catalogs in the mail. I wanted to get the best, highest performing seed for my customers. So I would use those NTEP guides and I would just handwrite them, literally handwriting them down, doing some simple math, doing that LSD value, comparing different varieties, seeing if the difference between the varieties was greater than the LSD or less than the LSD. And I began doing hundreds and hundreds of those things. They came out with CDs back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And now all the data is put on these text files on their website. Thousands, there's probably tens of thousands of text file sheets on that website now. But I began downloading these sheets. I got good with Excel, began downloading sheets, turning them into Excel. Then I could stack multiple sheets on top of another. Then I could kind of make my own pivot table. Then I would start, being able to do this faster and faster. Well, I kept doing that and kept downloading hundreds of these files. And I had this moment one day at a coffee shop in Fort Wayne, actually one on the corner of Lima and DuPont Roads. And I'm thinking there one afternoon as I'm doing this, gee, I wonder how many text files are actually in that NTEP website. I bet there's tens of thousands. I wonder how long that would take to download all of those. And I wonder what my wife and kids would say if I began doing that. After a few more sips of my dark roast coffee, I said, I could probably do that. And I decided to do it. And about 5 years later, I had 20-some million data points. I don't know. That's just the way I'm wired up. And I was able to make these beautiful pivot tables and come up with a way to seriously crunch NTEP numbers. Then when I was working with Winfield, we had these academies like we have now. And we hired Dr. Worley from Texas A&M to do several presentations for us. Between his presentations, I showed him the data that what I had for this Turf Tech tool. I asked him, what would you do, Dr. Ben, to improve this? He told me what a turf performance index was. He said he was one of the first to publish on this, not the first to actually use it, but to publish on it in this research paper in Hort Science, low input performance of zoysia grasses under shade. He showed me what it was. It took me about a year to actually build this, and about 3 years later, we had a patent on the Turf Tech tool. So I want to show you basically what the Turf Tech tool does. I'm going to get out of this PowerPoint and hop over here to Excel. Hope everybody's with me. I wish we were live because you may have some questions, and I'd love to be able to go face-to-face with your questions. But if you have any questions after this presentation, contact the administrators of the Academy, and they can get you and I in contact with one another. But if you have any questions, please call me. On the website, this is from 2023. This is Brown Patch data. There's 3 states, Delaware, North Carolina, New Jersey. Then they come up with an average for all 3, a mean. There's 132 varieties. There they all are. I'm just kind of scrolling down here. There we go. And that's what it looks like. So if you look at the LSD value here at the bottom, LSD value on the mean is 1.3. We'll have to go through here and find the highest score. Use my little Excel chart here. Highest score is 7.3. Okay. LSD value is 1.3. We can do the math, and then we can find out which varieties are going to be greater than the LSD value. Those would be different than the maximum score 7.3, and which scores are less than. And we identify which varieties are no different than the 7.3, the highest score. There is your top performing group. There is your number one group for the average for brown patch warm temperature for 2023 data. And then we can do it for the other states, Delaware, North Carolina, and New Jersey. 1 point here, be careful about using averages. Averages hide data. That's why I don't use, and there's a lot of recommendations online about not using the overall average. Because what if Delaware is a really high score? What if North Carolina is an abnormally low score and New Jersey is a really high score? See, that one score is going to drag the average down or could move the average up. So what we want to do is look at each individual state and do counts. And that's what I've done. So here on this mean, just to show you an illustration, I've highlighted in green the top performing group here. There's your top performers. Anything from 5.9 or below, that would be greater than the 1.3. All those varieties there are different than the mean. Those are all different. Bandit, Palomar, Escalade, Top Shelf, Naturally Green. Those are not. Those have a significant amount of brown patch versus the top group. But we don't want to just look at the mean. I'm showing you that as an illustration. If you look at the individual states, what I've done is look at every state, Delaware, North Carolina, New Jersey, and I'm highlighted all of the top performing groups in green. I know it's getting a little nerdy, but stay with me. Your LSD value for Delaware is 1.5. LSD value for North Carolina, 2.3. LSD for New Jersey, 2.7. If we do the same math and highlight in green, those are your top performers. You can see, like Bonfire, which is interesting. Well, the top 6 perfect scores, 1, 2, 3, all the way across. Bonfire from Barenbrug missed one. It missed Delaware, but it's got the other 2, so it's 2 out of 3. And here's some more. Avenger 3 from Mountain View, that made all 3. So did Daybreak from, I believe that's Brett Young Seed, they made all 3. Then we scroll down here, some only made 1. Padre 2 made 1. Some of these get down towards the bottom. Here's one, this experimental. Here's one, Bandit. Didn't make any. 0 out of 3. So if we keep going with the chart, we can start looking at counting the group, not using the mean. I don't want to use the mean now. I want to count. How many groups made 3 or more? Well, there were how many? We can count them. Right over here, we had 26 out of 132 that had a perfect score. Those are the consistent highest performers for North Carolina for 2003. That's interesting. Then we go down here to, I think I might have missed that one there. Let's go back and recount that guy. Top ones. Okay, we got 27. There we go, 27 of them. Then 2 out of 3. We got 2 out of 3, 66.7%. 2 out of 3, we've got the next group, and there's 51 in that group. Then 1 out of 3, we got a bunch of 1 out of 3s here. And then we've got a few that didn't make it one time. So all we're doing is going through the entire database and counting the number ones. How many times were you number 1 for every attribute? We're using brown patch right now, but it applies to every attribute. That's how that works. Here's a Turf Tech tool. This is on the same database. 2018, Tall Fescue, National Turfgrass Evaluation Program. 53 attributes are loaded up here. We can take a look at all these varieties. I've got the variety name. I've got the vendor name. We're talking about diseases, so let's just click on brown patch warm temperature. We've got 5 years of data in here, 5 years. Trial started in 2018. First readings, crop was planted. First readings came in 2019. And They just published the 5th year just 4 or 5 months ago. So we got 5 years of data here, and we're looking at the standard brown patch warm temperature. It's going to have, I think there's 7 or 8 states listed over 5 years that they tested at. Top one. Actually, there's a tie. There's 5 varieties that made the top TPI score. 85.7% of the time, Providence, Dragster, Serenade, Degas, Fine Lawn, Supreme, and made the top group on that one brown patch score. That is amazing. Every time you run a trial, 85.7% of the time you're in the top performing group. Those are highly resistant to brown patch. We got another group coming in at 81%. That's really good, 81. By the way, I don't know how many of you have seen the movie Moneyball. When I give presentations, I like to reference the movie. They're the Oakland A's from, I think, 2001, and they don't have enough money. They don't have as much money as the New York Yankees to buy all these stars. So what do? They look at all the metrics, and they buy players that they can buy at a low cost, but have attributes, but they have stats that can win games. And the movie's just fascinating. This Turf Tech tool essentially is Moneyball for turf seed varieties. What varieties can we get that are going to give us the highest performance on the attributes we care about? Not all attributes are equal. Just like in the movie Moneyball, offense attributes, defense attributes. They are not equal. So anyway, playing Moneyball, what about an 81? Oh, I would buy 81s all day long. Absolutely buy them. And depending especially on what the other attributes say. 76.2, those are really good. 71s are good. Not as high as the top ones, but they're really good. Look at the range of scores though. We're down in the, like this Oriole from Newsom Seed, 57.1% on brown patch. It's about in the middle. There's a 42 Tar Heel from Pure Seed, 42.9. We've got Turbo SS at 33.3. We're starting to get into some low ones here. The bottom, Grand Prix, from this company right here, 9.5% of the time in this trial over 5 years did it make the top group. That's not much. That is not much. So you can see these, how they are performing. When you are thinking about, remember all those marketing sell sheets I showed you earlier? Brown patch disease, high performance, we're superior, highly resistant. They all sound good. Do those look like they're the same to you? They do not to me. These look very different, like they're not the same. And wouldn't it be nice if some of these marketing sheets actually had some of these numbers on here? Well, let's do this. There are some other brown patch data points where they do specific brown patch data for specific states: Delaware, Indiana, North Carolina. So we could click on those and we're going to get a different ranking. Why? Because weather climates are different, soil's different, nighttime humidities are different. That's why we do different trials at different states. So we can test these tall fescues under a variety of conditions. I might as well just say it right now. If all you want to use is the state that you live in, I would encourage you to rethink that. I live in Indiana. My alma mater is Purdue. Got my master's in 1979. That tells you how old I am. But Purdue has an NTEP trial out down at West Lafayette. The soils here in Northeast Indiana are heavy clay calcareous soils, high pH. We've got limestone gravel pits all over the place. Heading south of West Lafayette, Vincennes, Evansville, they tend to be on more acidic sands. They're different. Our soils are different here. The weather patterns are different. The water quality is probably different. The way we manage things are not going to be the same. I could give you 100 variables of why Evansville and Fort Wayne is going to be different than West Lafayette. So only looking at one state and one set of data is probably not helpful. I'm going to look at all the brown patch states, and there's, I think, 7 or 8 here. I can be more assured that those are going to be high performing in my state because they're consistent across all those environmental, management, and agronomic factors. That's what we want. So I can load up North Carolina. There's the North Carolina data. Some of them made 100% because there was one state. 100% of the time they were in the top group. Some of these made it 85.7% of the time, and so on and so forth. You kind of see how the pattern works. Some of these didn't make it any. Then we can start looking at Indiana. Same thing. We can start looking at how they did in Indiana. Then we can start looking at Delaware, how they do in Delaware. And since these are all brown patch, here's the Moneyball chart. We can start looking at all 4 of those, and we can play Moneyball with all 4 of those attributes. We've got a larger number of data points. In this particular case, Fine Lawn Supreme from Proceeds, 96.4% TPI score based on those 4 states. There's an experimental 95.2, and Avenger 3 from Mountain View right after that at 95.2. Then Capitan, 85.2. We can scroll down. How did these do? Some of them do well, some of them don't. That's not the biggest deal. The biggest deal is how are they performing overall? Here's a great score in Indiana, not so good in North Carolina. This is the teacher from the Scott's Company. Not as consistent. Scores are getting red and orange. Here's some very low ones down here. We'll want to probably avoid on brown patch. But that's how this would work on brown patch. Using the TPI score to find the highest scores, they will give you the most resistance, meaning when you got a tall fescue lawn, you'll more than likely, these are all probabilities, these are based on a confidence limit. We are 95% sure if we duplicate this research, we'll get the same result. There's a high probability you're going to use less propiconazole and less astraxystrobin when it comes to brown patch disease. Now, playing Moneyball from the south, you got to have gray leaf spot resistance, or we could be in trouble. They didn't have quite as many trials on the gray leaf spot as they did on brown patch, but you can see here's a bunch of varieties like Rover from Landmark, Tank from Scott's Company, Barnoble from Barenbrug, 100% scores. And then we got a group that was at 50% on brown patch. And then we got a group down here that's going to be at 0, Turbo SS. So what if we go back and we play Moneyball and we add gray leaf spot, brown patch, all 3 of the brown patch local states? For the biggest diseases, for the most part, on tall fescue, this is going to be your Moneyball chart for all brown patch data and gray leaf spot data. Top rank. Avenger 3, Mountain View C, 96.2 on the TPI chart. Then Dragster. Then Degas from Lebanon at 94.3. Keep going down. One called Tycoon from the Scott's Company, 93.3. Titanium GLS from Mountain View, 90. That came out of Steve Johnson's breeding program, Peak Plant Genetics, 92.4. You can just see how these things are all looking. A Serenade from Integra at 80.5. Battlehawk from Landmark, 78.6. Keep scrolling down. You'll see lower scores. What you don't get typically from marketing sell sheets are these TPI charts. And these are very important to make your decisions on what varieties are going to go in your tall fescue blends. And some of these get really, really low that I probably would not want to deal with. Okay, we've got, I think about 10 minutes left. I want to show you how this thing works, why it's important using data and not just marketing. We can look at some of the other ones. Here's the deal. Red thread. Do we have red thread data? Yeah, we do. There wasn't a large number of states that were doing red thread testing. I think there was only one, I believe, if I was right. Yeah. So there was one state, one trial on red thread. And the 100% means you made the top group. using that LSD value, you made the top group. 0 means you missed the top group. And there's a few that missed it down here. They got a 0 because there was one trial, one column of numbers. You're either in or you're out. And most of them showed about the same amount of resistance for red thread. So the deal is, I've been doing this a long time. I get calls and I get requests from customers, all kinds of customers, about brown patch resistance and gray leaf spot resistance. I get very little calls on red thread. It is a low nitrogen, kind of an aggravated disease. It's typically a little nitrogen will bring that tall fescue out of red thread. It gets these little off-color baseball, softball size little spots. Gets those little, I think this Drexlera, little red strands at the top of the tall fescue blades. Typically mowing and some nitrogen fertilizer, and it's not a big deal. I have never seen a lawn destroyed by red thread, although I have seen them destroyed by brown patch and gray leaf spot. So I don't really use red thread. Now, if you're in an area of the country and red thread is a problem, you would probably want to add red thread to your charts and in your analysis. But I just don't see a whole lot of it. Had one person ask me about Pythium, and again, we had, I would have to check the number of states that the NTEP ran trials on. They had, here's a lot of them that had 100% score, resistant to Pythium. And by the way, when it says 100% or it says 97%, these high TPI scores, that means those were the best plots in the research trials that made the #1 group. That does not mean that it did not have any Pythium. It does not mean that it did not have any brown patch or Rhizoctonia disease. Doesn't mean it didn't have any dollar spot, but it means it had the least. It's like grading on a curve. Of the 132 varieties in those 3 replicated plots, the ones in the top performing group had the least amount of those diseases. So it's not 100% that like there's no Pythium here, but it means they resisted better than the other ones did. So there's a big group at 100. Then there's another group at 75%. So on one of the readings, they would have missed at least one of these. Then we came in with a group here at 50%. And it looks like every variety made at least the top group in one of the trials, or else I would see zeros here. So these ones at the 50% range are going to be the lower ones. Look at that, K31 made 75. So that's we can look at Pythium, we can look at Typhula blight, pink snow mold, red thread, pink patch, gray leaf spot, all of these, and they'll sort differently. But I'm just showing, let me show it again just to put it up there. The big one would be brown patch that everybody wants to know, gray leaf spot. That's the big one. If you would like a chart, because you're Academy attender, contact the administrators of the Academy and they can get a hold of me. Let me do one more thing before we close out here. We got about 3 or 4 minutes. In a turf situation, disease like these two are really, really important when it comes to tall fescue, right? But there's some other things that are important too. Let me add this. Let me add a seedling vigor score, right? We want these tall fescues to germinate fast rather than slow. So let me add a seedling vigor score. And just for fun, the transition region of the country is really hard. You know, it's the old saying, it's too cold for warm season and too warm for cool season down in the transition zone. So let me add the transition zone. So we have a seedling vigor and we have at least one quality score. So now we're adding seedling vigor. Look at this, Falcon Supreme, Raptor LS, 100% on seedling vigor. And I believe there's 5 states that did seedling vigor trials. Those are really fast. Avenger 3, 80%. That's really fast too. 20% on Degas, that would be a little slower. So you had seedling vigor, you had transition zone quality, so you have a quality score, Number 1, Avenger 3 from Mountain View Seed. Number 2, Titanium GLS, Mountain View Seed. Number 3, Bonfire, right up there with Titanium, 86.9. Then Fine Lawn Supreme, 84.8. Those are top tall fescue varieties based on this Moneyball chart using the Turf Tech tool. Scrolling down, you can kind of see the range of scores. Here's some kind of in the middle. Padre 2, O'Keefe, Hemi, and we're getting down in some of the low ones here. You got Copious Tango, you've got Escalade, a lot of these on the lower end of the scale. So just keep that in mind. One thing, previous generation, these are the previous generation. Look at their overall scores. Okay, let's get the mouse working. Standard, here we go. Standard, there you are. Check the box, Bruce. 1, Paramount, not bad. 74 on a previous generation. Most of these previous generations in the lower range of the scores. No matter which attributes I choose, previous generations are not as high performing as the newest ones because that's what plant breeders do. That's what you would expect. And that is basically how you find high performing varieties for disease resistance in tall fescues. And I really appreciate your time. I wish we were live so I could answer any questions, but if you have any, contact the Academy administrators. I've really enjoyed being here with you today. Thank you for your attention, and we'll see you later. Thank you.